These adored mid-19th century ballet goddesses fan the flame within our soul even today. We too have our living legends. Tradition's beauty is as untarnishable and imperishable as gold. 400 years of ballet history, but 1830 to 1850 was Romanticism, the still point around which the earth of present ballet spins. Théophile Gautier described them as happy angels who scarcely bent the petals of celestial flowers with the tips of their pink toes. Ballet entered a new world of sylphs, willies, the beautiful dead come to life to touch and be touched as visions. Victor Hugo wrote of them as children of the air, diaphanous bodies, dreams without fright.
Let us join these four great ballerinas in a discussion of the Romantic style. How does it differ from other forms of ballet? How is it the reflection of its age? And above all, what is the relevance of this historic style to our world today?
You know, you will see the style, and what we do, I think, is to get without pretension to be or Lacerito, or I don't know, you know. For example, in my case, it's impossible, so you try hard and study on the lithograph and what you can read about or what you can teach you on the inspiration that you have from other dancers. For example, I had a lot of inspiration from you, Danny. So, you know, it's, I think it's wonderful. I mean, it's the kind of richness that all form of art, you know, had, you know, and left, you know.
To apport.
And so you have to keep alive. I mean, you go to the gallery, you look at painting, and you have inspiration, and, you know, any form of art. You read a book, you know, so this is life continues, you do new things, but still you go back and you have inspiration, making other new style, but still that is kind of going, you know.
Bring it that
I don't know, yes,
into the present, actually, because dancing is not a painting, dancing is alive, an art that is alive, and if we don't do it, it doesn't come alive.
2,000 meters above sea level and 400 kilometers north from Mexico City, you reach today's provincial capital of Guanajuato. 450 years old, 45,000 inhabitants. Once the great source of silver for all the territory of New Spain. Its ornate, elegant public buildings contrast with the simplicity of the city's life. But both stand in a testimony of triumph over injustice and for peace untrammeled. Once it was a seat of revolt. Its mine workers, oppressed by government supported by foreign troops, carried torches to destroy enemy arsenals. Now all is tranquil, and Guanajuato is the home of the great annual International Arts Festival Cervantino, named after Cervantes. The theater, adorned with 8 muses and 11 columns, was begun in 1873. One masterpiece of 1845 was the Grand Patecat, designed to display special qualities of the 4 reigning dance stars, each resolved to be a planet around which others would circle as satellites. Also 4 ballets were popular then, but remain only half remembered through lithographs. Now each ballerina with her honoring cavalier will dance a recreated pas de deux from these ballets. One costume traditionally associated with ballet, the Paris Opera, is the défilé. The word means parade, as the stars in order of age unthread their individual characteristic excellence.
we four dance the Grand Pas de Quatre, and we four dance Pas de deux also in the same program, and yet the Pas de deux are different from the Grand Pas de Quatre. They are on the romantic style, but they have a different little thing to add, like you with Esmeralda.
I had a background from Denmark, so
you do Graham.
That's where I learned the Bournonville tradition, which is wonderful, really, because the ballets have remained in the repertoire since he worked in the 1830s, 1840s. And so that tradition is still very much alive in Denmark. You see the older dance actors, they play these marvelous pantomime roles, and somehow it gives so much life to the Bournonville ballets to have these pantomime actors.
It is not only pantomime, it's so much jumping that is a ballet that is a killer, for example,
but it shows the balance of the ballets which were made in that period. The balance between the pantomime and the dancing was very integrated somehow. I think more integrated than perhaps in the Petit-Pas era, where divertissement was very much separated from the pantomime sections.
It's more
and
involved.
Giselle and La Sulfide, the acting was very much integrated, I think.
Into the dancing himself. Yes, absolutely.
And the style that I learned there is very much a sort of light and a natural gracefulness, and it's very difficult to pinpoint it in words, but it's something very special, and Peter and I tried to use that style in the Pas de deux we choreographed for Esmeralda.
Yes, it's quite strange that they don't, they think, most of the people, that is pantomime is not necessary, you know, it's kind of old-fashioned, and I don't find that, you know, I really think this is so important. It's the way how to do it, and how to do it in the right way, you know.
Yes, to be very sincere.
In London, 1844, Victor Hugo's novel, Notre-Dame de Paris, with its panoply of 15th century Parisians, hunchbacks, jocklers, jesters, and street dancers became a ballet. Here it tells the story of Esmeralda, street dancer hired to perform at a wedding. She discovers that the bridegroom is the very man she has long loved. The pair dance. Esmeralda conceals her jealousy and loss. She dances through tears, always displaying the vivacity of her profession.
something important that I think we must tell them. It is that one thing is to dance Le Grand Pas de Quatre, which we four dance together, which has the stage for you, and then you give it to the other one. This is a style where our body is a little bit pronounced, our head, even the movement of the arm. And the other one, it is your pas de deux that you dance. Or the
Natalie or the Swiss
Natalie,
Milkmaid, yes.
Yes. Which is not quite like the Grand Pas de Quatre. It has on the same style, but it has a charm, a different, because she's representing an historic.
A Swiss Milkmaid, yes. But I think it's nearly more influenced by a certain joie de vivre that was very much in fashion in the 18th century already. You know, sort of a very free peasant-like and a bit a coquin, you know, as we say. But it's still very in fashion in the Romantic period.
I think one of the most wonderful things it is the discipline in the different style of the putting of the head, of the arms. You were talking about the round of the arms, the control, and the position, the way that they do speak.
Of course,
they do speak of something, don't you think? Because as
it all plays a part of that style.
That's true. In Paris, I've been told when I was working with teachers like Schaufuss that il y a le temps de la conversation. It means that when you dance this style, it's like a conversation with the public, and each pose of arm, each port de bras is like a word.
High in the Swiss Alps, a milkmaid is enamored of a handsome horseman. In her secret loneliness, she has confessed to a statue the depth of her passion. To her mortification, the statue comes to life and turns out to be that man himself. But he's delighted, and the two dance out their love and soon-to-be consummated marriage. After writing Giselle, Courtier turned to the exotic. Peri is a Persian courtesan inhabiting Allah's paradise. First performed in Paris in 1843, a time of opium and hedonism, the pas de deux shows a man in drug-induced sleep. The Peri appears and seduces him. But is it only a vision, a dream, hallucination? A bouquet of flowers will prove its reality, and in paradise one day, the lovers will be eternally united.
the Romantic era was really a period in history, and it began in Paris in 1830, and it began on the stage as well as in literature and painting. One of the ballets that you're seeing this evening is called Robert the Devil. It was a ballet from the third act of Meyerbeer's opera in 1830, and it created such a furor because it brought on stage willies, dead spirits, ghosts, and one of the characters was a dead nun who rises out of the grave and dances with Robert, Robert having the spirit to bring the ladies up from the grave. This opera and ballet was the first time that a ballerina, Maria Taglioni, whose picture is here in the center, from an 1845 ballet, which we later performed, went on point. It was the first time that any ballerina stood on her toe, something which we take for granted today. It was in Robert. That, along with quickly La Sylphide the year later, and then 10 years later, Giselle, which is probably the masterpiece of the Romantic era, the French Romantic era.
The devil has seized the branch from the mystic cypress tree growing over the grave of Saint Rosalie. It has the power to summon the dead to rise from their graves. Here in the cemetery of the ruined convent, where nuns who have broken their vows of chastity are buried, the archfiend lures the abbess from her sepulchre. She will struggle to retrieve the branch so that she may never return to him or to the world whose temptation destroyed her.
this romantic ballet should be studying dance, and the choreographers of today who have done our pas de deux and have worked hard into it has been very hard for them because they have to do a lot of research. They have to study it. Try to put this pas de deux that will give the feeling, the atmosphere of the romantic era with our knowledge of today of advanced theater. So people will not say, oh, this is impossible, but people will say, how charming, how delightful, how beautiful it is to look at it. Don't you think?
Yeah, still you have to have your personality to put on. For example, in Giselle, I know that is a style. For example, first act is like a peasant girl, you know, which is, I think, I start to cut a little bit, you know, this kind of too much, you know, and just to have the touch of the style. I think Giselle has the chance to make you more free on your way to dance, still with the touch of the period. You understand?
Well, let me see.
Because
well,
you say
in Pas de Quatre, you do a little bit with a sense of humor, like we talk about.
Yes.
We exaggerate the position.
Yes, and you keep that.
And Giselle, the same position,
but
you do it, but you do it longer.
Yes, exactly. In the way that is your way to work today.
Because it's a dramatic ballet.
And you have more, it's your interpretation too, your movement, you know.
But definitely, because you see, in Pas de Quatre, you are impersonated a person that really dances that way.
That's it.
But in Giselle, you are impersonated on a story, a girl so
right. So
the person is not described as it, but it's the story, the one you must tell.
That's it. Yes. Because you were saying before, our technique, our way to work, and the ballet, which you can be, you know, more strict in some position and more freedom in your way that you are working in other ballet, which they are still in the romantic era.
Well, the arms can be changed. One can put it like here, one here, one here, one here. There are many positions, and the head, and these can be changed. But what cannot be changed is the feeling, the atmosphere that you must give.
Yes, that we have to keep. Yes, I said I don't know. I said the touch has to be there, that it has more chance to be more free on,
I agree
you know.
with Carla. I think you're allowed in Giselle of your own sensibility, even if it's different from another Giselle that can be very wonderful.
Because you are not portraying a personality, you are not portraying an individual.
No,
you are telling a story, so therefore you can
your own
elaborate it in it.
Live in Giselle.
I don't think there is in the world two dancers who dance exactly alike.
No.
It doesn't exist. No. It has never existed. And it's very simple to understand. In a family with many children, they're not exactly alike. You know? And in the world of art, that's the reason of it, is how much each dancer, each individual has to give.
Of course.
That's important.
Yes.
I think we all agree in that.
Oh, yes.
Willies are pure maidens who have tragically died before marrying and condemned to dance each night throughout all eternity. In vengeance, they force any swain they chance upon to dance their unpitying waltz until he dies. Giselle breaks the spell and saves her lover from his death while she returns to hers.
Anton Dolin, the choreographer of the Grand Pas de Quatre, is a specialist in the romantic style and was one of the great danseurs of all time.
For many years in my studio home in London, there hung a copy, actually, of this lithograph, very famous lithograph by Chalon. It was about 1938, I think, in London, that I had the idea, why not bring this lithograph to life? For many years it had been nothing but a lithograph and a dead picture. The original music was found eventually by a very great historian of the ballet, Cyril Beaumont, at the London British Museum. Of course, there was no orchestration and there was very little indication as to what the music was about, but he did have the pas d'ensemble, the variation of Taglioni, the variation of Cerito, the variation of Gran, and the variation of Grisi. Eventually, in 1941 in New York, I really did recreate or reconstruct the ballet. All I had to go on were various critics of the time when it was first produced in London at His Majesty's Theatre, which was July 1845, when it was danced by the four great danseuses. In those days, they were not called ballerinas, they were called danseuses. Marie Taglioni, Fanny Cerito, Carlotta Grisi, and Lucille Gran.
The style of the pantomime, the charm of the pantomime of it. Pantomime is when you say an story with the gesture of your arms. With the you and I will dance. Oh, it's a shame. I think it is charming, and I've seen that in all the ballets that we do, there's a certain feeling of it.
Yes, but this in particular case, in this Pas de Quatre, it is something of humor too, you know, which this four greatest dancers had, you know, at that time, this kind of rivalry.
Yes, rivalry.
Rivalry, you know,
yes.
And so it has a touch of, you know, of
I imagine must have been.
picking, it's a picking thing, you know,
Yes.
is to give the stage and to just go off, you know.
With a smile.
Like that. So,
Well, it must have been something.
the story of the Pas de Quatre, sorry.
No,
maybe
that's
you
what I
can
wanted.
tell, you know,
Yes.
how they did it, these four greeters, and they put together, and this big going on, who was dancing, Taglioni.
In England. It was put on in England for
Anniversary
the anniversary of Queen Victoria.
Yes.
They were the four greatest dancers of that time.
Yes.
There were another one, a fifth one, that it was Fanny Esler, but somehow they could not get her. They did it. They decided four of them. So it was Taglioni, Cerito, Graham, and Grisi.
So I think basically is based on style and, you know, how to bow and this kind of femininity. Femininity, yes.
Femininity.
So graceful and, you know, so charming. It's basically, you know, it's not really a story there. It's, you know, it's just a kind of competition between the four of them, you know, and still with so much
with
charm,
elegance.
yes.